Now today I'm going to show you how to thread a machine. And today we are going to focus on a Mini JL sewing machine and a Mini Janome sewing machine. Now I don't know if you can see, but I have rather a lot of these machines, so I consider myself to be a bit of an expert. Now when you get your machine and you take it out of the box, you're going to have a plug like this, and you've got to plug that into the little socket at the bottom. Now also you'll have this. Now we call this a PEDDLE, and that has to be plugged in at the side here. Now before we plug it in, I just want to talk about this area here on the machine. So when you get your machine, this bit here, it's called the tension. When it comes, it's on a number 1, and if you tried to sew a number 1, it would be a complete disaster. Nothing would happen at all. So the first thing I want you to do is to turn it to about number 4. Now the other thing is, it's also usually set on A, and A is the teeniest weeniest stitch ever. So I want you to turn it to C, and C is a straight stitch that isn't quite as big as that. I mainly use C when I use this machine. Now I want to show you what makes this thing here, which is called a foot, go up and down. There's a lever that when we lift it up, it makes it go up, and then we can drop it. And if I turn around the machine, you can see what that is. So it's this lever here. I lift it up, it stays up, and I put it down. And we use that to put fabric underneath. I want to show you something. If I put paper in the machine like that, and on the side here there is a wheel. Can you see that wheel? If I turn that towards you, can you see how we can actually sew? Most sewers would say, oh no, don't sew paper, it will make your needle blunt. But I think it's a really good thing to do when you first get a machine that you've never sewn with before. Right, I know it's a bit boring looking at the floor, but something's going to happen in a minute. I've plugged it in, the power's on. That pedal, when I put my foot on it, very gently, something's going to happen. So here we go, foot on the pedal. Wow! Look at that! Now listen, mummies and daddies, if you've got little kiddies out there that you've bought this machine for, this is a really good way for them to get confident with using the machine. So I really recommend you do this before you thread up your machine. Okay, so I've put my foot on the pedal, and we're just making dots on the paper, which you're going to see in a minute. But I want you to do this. So we're going to turn a corner now. We're going to turn the wheel towards you. We always turn the wheel towards ourselves. Do you remember that lever that was at the back? I'm lifting that. Shall I show you that? It's the lever at the back there. I'll try and put that back. So I've lifted that so I can turn the paper. I'm going to drop it down again, and off I go. So I'm going to do that again. My needle's not in, I want it to go in. I'm going to turn the needle towards myself or yourself, lift up the foot, turn the paper, drop down the foot, and off I go again. So just keep doing that until you get back to the beginning. Now when you've finished, you must always make sure your needle is up. Now remember the rule, you turn it towards you and then you can lift up your foot. Look, you've done these lovely dots. Now if you do loads and loads of that, you will blunt your needle, but it will take quite a while, and don't worry about it for now. But if your needle does become blunt, then you can watch my tutorial on how to change a needle. Actually, when you do get these little machines, it's a very good idea to buy yourself a short slotted screwdriver. So I've got my spool of thread, okay? Sometimes when you get these spools of thread, here's a top tip, a top tree tip. Say that was really tight in there and you just can't get it out. Well, do you know what? You can lift that bit off. Did you know you could do that? And then put it back again. Right, so we need to put our thread onto this here, this spool here. So it comes like that when you get it in the box. You need to plop it out like that and put your thread on there. Now, on the top of this machine, there's like a little nipply button thing there. We need to wind it around there. So that's where we're going to put our bobbin. So let's find our bobbin. We've got one in the drawer here, because it comes with such a cute little drawer. Right, there's our bobbin. See that? So once you've got it around that little nipply bit, which acts as a kind of tension, you need to push your bobbin over, wind it around a few times. Oops. Only around the bobbin though, yeah? Like that. Or you could put it through one of those holes, but I never do that. It's a bit lazy of me. Make sure it's pushed towards the button, and in theory, look, if I go like that, can you see? It's winding the bobbin with the thread from here. Now sometimes what happens is it just loads it more at the bottom. So you've sort of got to ease it up and down. Just keep an eye on it. So make sure it goes up and down as it winds. Now we don't need very much for what we're doing today, so I'm going to stop now. When you stop, you've got to push it to the normal position, cut a long thread, and then we've got all the fun of putting the bobbin in the machine. So now we're going to learn how to put that bobbin into the bobbin case down here on the machine. Right, this is our bobbin case and it has this sort of plastic front on it, and the way to get it off is to slide it off and slide it back on and slide it off. Now can I just say, it's very important, really important, look, hands waving. You must take the power out of the machine when you do this, okay? I'm being overly cautious. I have a story to tell you about that, but not right now. I'll tell you if we've got time at the end. Now, a good way to remember which way round the thread should be going, because all machines are different because they like to make it difficult for you, is that when you put your bobbin in, so here my thread's going around anti-clockwise, okay? I'm putting my bobbin in because it then, when I've put it inside these little bits here, there are little grooves. If I hold the bobbin, put it through the groove, it will go back on itself. So it was winding around that way, but then it just went back on itself. And there's an arrow there to tell me. So I'm going to do that again because I have a feeling you might be confused. Whenever you take the bobbin out, hold the bobbin case. So we've got our bobbin. Does it go this way, clockwise? No, it goes anti-clockwise. I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to hold it put it in, look, I'm pulling it here, putting it in the groove, and I'm taking it towards the back of the machine, following the arrow there. Right, now I'm going to show you how to thread the upper part of the machine. Now when we do this, there are actually arrows on the machine to help you, but I know it can still be a bit nerve-wracking and confusing. But what's very important is keep that power off. Okay, so here we go. Back of the machine. Do you remember that thing? We've got to put our spool of thread on there. And then, let's turn it the right way. Now, do you remember that little nipple thing? We don't put it around there. That's only for when we do the bobbin. We put it in between that little fork looking thing there. Now for everything else, you've got instructions, because you have an arrow there saying we go down, and then it says you come up, ooh, and then you come up. Now there should be something here that isn't here that you have to thread it through. So that wheel on the side, can you see the wheel on the side? So you turn the wheel towards you, see how it's going up and down? Right, if I turn the wheel towards me, it's coming up. That is mega important because it has to go through there. So it goes through there and then it goes down. Now this bit, I don't think anyone talks about this bit. This here, there's like a little hooky thing here. And I want you to put it around that hook. Now make sure your needle is high enough. Alright, so make sure it's high enough for you to be able to thread it. Take the amount of thread that you need, and because if you drop that foot down, look, I can't pull the thread anymore, it's like a break. See, look, I can pull it now, but if I drop the foot, it's like a break on the thread. But I've got enough. Now I'm going to do the thing that I hate most in the world, which is threading a needle. Now, when you threaded the needle, like that, lift up the foot, and this is important, it goes in between the front part of the foot, there's like a slot, and let it hang behind. Now the next bit I know people have problems with, and that's bringing the thread from the bottom up to the top. But just stick to this rule and you should find it easy. So I haven't put that perspex thing back on yet, okay? I've got my foot up, so this thing here, I've got it up. Now my top thread is purple, can you see on my hand? And the bottom thread is green. I'm going to do this, okay? I'm going to hold the top thread, not so it's really tight, but just so I'm taking the slack. Now the wheel, can you see the wheel on the side? Yeah? I'm going to turn that towards the front, turning it slowly, and then just as you see some action, I don't know if you can see that, there's a bit of action going on down there. When that happens, I know I can pull the thread, and then when I slide scissors underneath, whoa, look at that. My green thread is now on the top with the purple thread. Now the critical part about that was that I didn't start pulling the top thread until I saw the action down in the bobbin case of the thread moving. Ready to sew. This is the best bit, believe me, but take it easy, take it slowly. You've done your practice on paper without any thread. We're now going to sew some real fabric. We've got our foot up. I've plugged in that pedal, okay, which you're going to put your foot on. I've plugged in the power now, and I've got the fabric. So I'm going to draw a rough square on my fabric, and I'm going to see if I can use the machine to stitch that. So you put it underneath your machine where you want it to be, and you remember that lever, you drop it so the foot drops down. Take your time. So we're sewing on C. Let's see what happens. I'm trying to sew along that line. And when I get to the end, I've got my needle in, so I don't need to turn the wheel. So long as my needle's in, I lift up that lever, turn my fabric, just like we did. Do you remember? Just the same as we did with the paper. I'm dropping it down, and I'm going to sew to that corner there now. Now I've gone a bit broad of it because I was trying to make it so the needle's up so I could show you. Right, so if my needle wasn't in, I would turn it towards myself to make sure it's in, then lift the lever. So obviously I'm going to be a bit broad of my line now because I just wanted to show you how to do that, but I'll use the edge of my foot on the line instead, so I'll be that much away. So let's see now. Now this is very important, okay? You've got your needle in the machine, you've got your fabric underneath. How the heck do you get that away? You do it like this, and do stick to this rule, okay? Turn the wheel towards you to lift the needle. That's obvious because otherwise you'd rip the fabric. Lift up that lever that lifts up the foot here. Now do not just yank it away, all right? So many times when you sew, if you just yank this fabric away, you'll break the threads and you'll be forever rethreading it. And then you'll just hate sewing, and it's lovely sewing, so don't do that. This wheel on the side, we do this sort of jiggy thing, all right? So I'm going to do the jiggy thing, which is turning the wheel backwards and forwards. And what that does is, it loosens the tension and loosens any loop that was about to happen down there. Now another really mega big tip of mine is leave long threads, like really long threads, because if I was to cut my threads short there, what do you think would happen if I go and sew? They just come out of the needle and it's a right pain. Well, I'm going to fold this fabric now, and I'm going to show you how we try to sew in a straight line without a line being there. There'll be sort of guides on your sewing machine which you can stick to, but one thing you can do is the edge of your sewing foot, you can make sure it stays on the edge all of the time. Now let's turn it to another stitch. When you turn it to another stitch, you have to go through the alphabet in the right order. If I went backwards, sometimes it doesn't recognise the stitches. So I'm going to turn it to a whacking great big F, which is a great big zigzag, and I'm going to try and sew in a straight line with the edge of my sewing foot on the edge of that fold there. So how am I going to take my fabric away? I'm going to turn the wheel so that the needle comes up and turn the wheel towards me. I'm going to lift the lever so the foot's up, but I'm not going to yank that fabric away. I'm going to do a little jiggy here, jiggle, with the wheel on the side, and I'm going to leave a long thread. Now look at that. That is a pretty good bit of straight stitching. Now there are many other stitches, well not many other, they've got just as many as you need stitches for you to try out on the machine. So go and have a go and get really familiar with your machine. That's a real big tip before you go and make that wedding dress. Well, maybe not that wedding dress. Before you go and make your sewing projects, become very familiar with your machine first. Now on Stitchless TV, we have got more than 100 sewing tutorials, and about 70% of them are sewn on these little mini JL machines. because for me it emphasises how easy some of my sewing projects are. And what I've done is I've created a special playlist for new people like you to watch some easy sewing tutorials. So go and have a look at those. Thank you so much for watching Stitchless TV, and we'll see you again very soon. But don't forget to subscribe, and what's mega important is when you subscribe, you've got to click on that bell. And if you've previously subscribed to my channel, go back and check that you have clicked on that bell, because otherwise you don't get notified about my new tutorials. Bye!